Hey everybody, I'm Blake, and I feel like I'm having a lot of interesting conversations with a lot of different founders all the time. So whenever I have an interesting topic or something like that that seems like it'd be helpful to other people, I've been trying to share it or kind of explore it with other people as well. So that's what we're doing here today, talking with Rye. And I want to explore a conversation that we had the other day at Union Hall. You were working, and I came over and interrupted you because I had a little bit of trouble on a topic. So this is Rye Walker, co-founder of Astronomer, CTO now, and also, I mean, we've worked together on a bunch of stuff. You co-founded Differential, built the first version of Cladwell, my company, and so we've had a lot of stuff for the past 8 years together. But yeah, thanks for doing this chat. I'll set it up real fast, and then we can just jump into it. So the other day, I had a weird conversation. I gave a talk in Cincinnati at Union Hall about raising venture funding and how to raise venture funding, and at the end, I had multiple people ask questions of like, well, that's fine for venture capital, but what about, we're all at the angel stage, and what's different about the angel stage versus raising, true venture? And just for clarification, angel being like individuals who invest as opposed to venture, which would be somebody who took other people's money and now is investing as a fund in highly leveraged startups. And so I was a little bit stuck because I was like, I think the same rules apply, but I was feeling kind of confused. And so I kind of, in a daze, wandered over to Rye and I said, how would you answer this question? And you had a strong opinion. And I'm like, dang, I like a good opinion. I like a good thought. So just jump into it. Say what, simply stated, your opinion is that angel phase is not a phase, correct?
Yeah, well, I'd say it's fear and uncertainty. Is the best way. If a startup founder tells me I'm just at the angel phase, that tells me they're afraid to go raise money for one reason or another. It could be they don't feel they're ready personally, their product's ready, their pitch is ready, like all these things. And I think we talked. I kind of went off. I'm sure I talked for like a half hour about how the very best founders, when they have an idea, like they can write the idea down on a napkin. They're having a drink with a VC or someone who knows a VC, and they can like get around going. They can raise $2 million. This is in the Valley, of course, but they can raise a $2 million round right then and there, just at the inception of the idea, because they're a badass. The idea is decent, at least, or good. It's probably a good market because they're experienced, and like I was just saying, like everybody who's at the angel stage should not be. It's basically a non-stage, right? You don't have money to build things. All you're doing is fantasizing about what you might build, like, or if you're actually building things, you're doing it on such a shoestring that you're not building quality, and like quality wins. You know this with Cladwell. Even if you have quality, it's still really hard to win. But you can't build quality with nothing. So the best founders, they can just go snap their fingers, get $2 million, build a small team, 18 months runway, ship a product at the end of that that's probably going to be pretty nice quality. Now, it may not win. Startups fail and all that, but at least they built a quality product with a cohesive team. And you just can't. I mean, angel. What's angel mean? Like, I want to raise 50K. I want to raise. There's a friends and family round concept. Now, I think if you're starting a non-startup, if you're starting a small business, then sure, you can raise small money from friends and family and do some stuff like that. But technology businesses, I don't know. I would never have an angel round in any future business I ever do.
Yeah, the thing that I feel like the bubble that you kind of burst when you were first describing it was like, you said, the way you said it was like, look, if I want to raise for my next business, I literally can just go with a pretty brief concept that you said, like on a napkin or something like that. And I literally there's a certain group of people who are able to skip this phase altogether, the angel phase, right? And so if that's true, is it really a phase? Or is it really just a project, which is that from day one, your first project is raising the seed round. And for some people, that project is more intensive than others, depending on their background, right? Or depending on their network. But it's really, it's the first phase is we're raising a seed round. Is that kind of what you're saying?
I say the first phase is getting the confidence to go talk to real investors. Like you don't have, you're not going to get much built with how much money are we talking about? What's a typical angel round are we talking about? Is it
we raised 280,000 for our
okay?
first round with Cloudwell, and that was from like 30 investors, $10,000 a pop, friends and family, and a couple people who are angels. Yeah.
And you gave up what percentage of the company for 280? Do you remember?
We had a 1.5 pre. So what is that,
Yeah.
like 10? Yeah. So it was not
Like,
it was not horrible, but yeah.
yeah, but it's not insignificant, and it was a lot of effort, right? You spent so
Oh
much
my
energy
gosh.
raising that round that
5 months.
yeah, and it's just not worth. Again, if you would have just had, could you envision a world where you had enough confidence to go talk to some of the investors that you got later and go get a 250K check from them? Could that have happened instead of the angel round? If you had, again, you have to have the connections, you have to have the confidence, you have to have the vision. But you guys had a great vision, right?
Yes.
You
Yeah.
were able to sell 30 people on that vision. You just were talking to the wrong people, and you were just aiming low, in my opinion. You could have aimed higher and got it done.
I think the hard part is it's very doable for an insider, but for a person who feels like an outsider, the idea of becoming an insider feels like a more difficult path, I think, than just raising from friends and family. So why not
I
just
know,
raise from friends and family?
right? But well, because of the time, the effort, and the fact that you didn't have enough fuel to get done what you needed to get done in that phase. Like, even once you had the money raised, you had to be super careful with it. You were very frugal, and you couldn't just build a quality. Again, like, imagine you want to renovate your house. I'm sure you've done some work there, and you could only raise like 1/5 of the money that you really need to do it right. You're cutting corners, and you're putting your own, a lot of energy into it that money could have better bought. Like,
Mm-hmm.
a carpenter costs X dollars per hour. If you're doing the carpentry, yeah, you're saving that money. So I just think that yes, it's hard to become the insider, but you don't have to be an insider. That's the other thing too. You don't have to, like, I described the ideal situation: napkin, friend who's a
Right.
VC. That, I'm just saying, like that's the target, and you're not going to get there. You probably should create a real deck, and you probably have to build a network, and you probably have to talk to people you don't actually know. But if you can't raise that 250K from a real VC, from a seed stage VC, then maybe the idea isn't good, or you're not good, or like, maybe it's just not right. And
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like, a lot of people spend a lot of energy at angel stage working on bad ideas. They were able to get it funded, but it wasn't, like, again, if you would have taken it to, I don't know, like, I just think of some of the Mercury Fund, for example. Did you ever talk to them back then? Probably not.
Yeah.
But
I
did
talked
you?
to Blair. Yeah.
Yeah.
They
I
said
mean,
no. They said no immediately.
during the angel round, you did.
Not during the angel round. It was post the angel round.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pre-seed, post angel. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I'm saying, like, what if you would have talked to Blair on that day zero, and just being like, "Hey, Blair, I've got this idea. We think it could be cool." Like, he at that stage, he could even help guide it. It's fresh. It's new. Like, I think that's what those guys prefer. Now, again, I'm not saying you're going to get this done, but the attempt, like, you have to make the attempt. Are you going to get 100 rejections? Probably. Is it going to work? Probably. But by keeping yourself down in the minors, the minor leagues, I
And
think
the
you're
minor
actually
leagues,
hurting.
you're referring to minor leagues being maybe people who are not sophisticated investors, like friends and family or something like that. And then
Yeah,
also would you put a strategic angel in a different category in your mind,
I
or
would
what's kind
put
of the gradation?
I would put anyone who doesn't have any experience building a venture scale company in the amateur category, right? Like, and that puts almost everybody in Cincinnati in that category. Most of the angels you raise, from the 30 angels you raise from, how many of them have been involved in building a venture scale company? Probably less. I'm guessing at 2 at best, but maybe there were more. I don't know. Like, you
Don't
see
want
what
to
I'm
throw
saying?
any
So,
investors, don't want to throw anybody under the bus. I feel like there's
no,
definitely some folks, but there's a difference between an angel. You're right. There's a difference between an angel who has the context of venture backed and an angel who doesn't. And it really pans out, at least it panned out for me, and when things went poorly.
yeah,
And it's like the folks who maybe had a little bit more exposure to that were kind of like, I understand this is, I understand the statistics of how this worked. And then there are other folks who are irate of like, hey, it's been 18 months. Why don't I have my cash back? And you're
Yeah.
like, oh shoot. And that's a little bit of the debt that you're pulling out. It's almost like technical debt, where you're like, you don't realize that there's relational debt you're pulling out when you are pulling people who maybe have a little bit less of that context, even if you try to explain it.
And the ideas
Talk
from
about
the well, I was going to say the ideas from the angels too are going to be more like small business ideas. You know, that's probably how they made money. You know, is building something that isn't a tech startup, especially if they're from the Midwest. And so I just feel like the advice you're getting is potentially damaging advice. It sounds right, and it's actually right if you're building a small business, but it's not right if you're trying to go to VC stage. You know.
Okay, so in order to get seed funding, what needs to be true? Like, what do you need from, let's say, kind of like a micro VC?
Yeah.
Even if you're doing, what do you consider a seed round? Is 2 million your idea of what a seed round is, or is it more like? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I
So
mean, I think
in order to get
say between 1 and 2 million. Yeah. Something.
1
I
and
mean,
2.
again, yeah. A Midwest seed, that probably should be the range.
Okay. So to raise between 1 and 2, what needs to be true from a startup, in your opinion?
Well, I think number one, well, again, in the Midwest, it's a lot harder. You have to have something real and more tangible. You know, it's like, but that's where I say, like, don't start here. Don't, like, if you have a great idea, you need to build a vision for what the product will be, right? It doesn't have to be the actual product, but you can do mock-ups. You can do a low fidelity mock-up or a high fidelity mock-up. There's great tools to do that, but you have to basically express what the product is going to be. Again, many people, many experienced people go out and hire a dev shop to build a shitty version of that product right off the bat, you know, with their own money. And it's just crap. It's just like,
are you talking about me?
Some people do that
because you're the one who built it.
Yeah. I know. I'm saying, like, many people do that, and so to me, you have to have a crystallized vision of what the product is. Has to be in a great market that you can sell. So again, like anything that's like real estate or education, or, you know, we're going to sell this to the government. You know, that's bad market. It might be a big market, but it's a hard sales motion, you know? So like that's really important too, that they can believe that it's a big market that's it's good. You have to, so I really say there's 4 areas: product, market, team. You know, you have to be the right person to do this thing. You can't be a teacher who's going to go and suddenly become a database, you know, building the next big database in the world, right? Like the likelihood of that happening is almost nothing. The guy who's going to build the next great database in the world has probably built the database just before that, you know, like, and then finally the fourth area is traction, right? And so traction can be actual downloads and users, but it can also be pre-orders, you know. So we always used to talk about this in lean startup. You can go collect pre-orders for this fantasy product that you have, and almost nobody has ever brought to a seed stage investor, here's the mock-up, here are 10 orders I have for this thing once it's built, you know. Like, if you can bring orders and a product and a market, and that just, to me, shows you're a hustler. Like, that's a very differentiated thing. And you're working on all the hard parts of this problem, not the fun parts. A lot of people just jump out and like, oh, I got to build a logo, you know, I need to go hire a design firm to get my logo going, you know. Like, that is not worth doing at the seed stage, or at the seed stage, or let alone the angel stage.
Yeah. Okay. So vision for product, great market. Talk about team. Like, is it just you? Are you paying the team, or is it just like, oh, we're saying once we have money, this will be the team, or kind of how do you think about that?
Yeah, so you can have people signed up that when the round is raised, they're in, and that's all that you need to have. You know, you just have to have the commitment. So when we raised one of our rounds, you know, I had commitment that X, Y, and Z guys are going to join, you know, with this round, and the VCs may have verified that, but that's all you needed to have. You know, some clue that you know, if you need to hire people other than yourselves, you have to have just enough evidence to check that off on their list of the team, that isn't a weakness, you know. The other thing that I learned at AngelPad, which is to me really interesting, is of those 4 areas I just described, you have to be really good at one of them. So you can't just get straight B's and get their money, right? Or even B pluses. You have to have something, one of those 4 categories, you have to be off the charts good. So figure out what that's going to be for you and go make it happen.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes. So one
yeah,
off the charts, and then how bad can the other ones be? Is it all B's and one A plus?
no, I think if you have an A plus, you can have some C's and D's, and they're going to invest in you because they realize you can hire for those other things. That's the theory from AngelPad, which I do think, again, can you have C's and can you have F's, can you have D's? I don't know, but the point is, like, you have to have something that makes you stand out, that gets them excited, that gets them over the hump, versus, kind of like, that's the theory, at least. Which
Okay, so
I like.
all right, so wise Papa Rye. Here I come, 26-year-old Blake, having just left my cushy hedge fund job, and I, have quit. Me and Tim Brunk are teamed up, and we have a concept. Essentially, we built out a massive spreadsheet that actually you would put in assumptions and it would spit out your ideal wardrobe and what colors and sizes and stuff like that. So we had a concept of a product. In terms of market, it depends on how you describe the market. Potential team, we had some gaps, and then from a traction standpoint, we had zero. What
advice
would you give to us at that point?
Yeah, I probably would say the same thing that everyone said to you back then that you ignored, which was, why not women? Right?
Yep. Yeah. Right. And that would have cut a lot of time, right? That would have cut a huge amount of time. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you slammed your head against dudes for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's, you just get, again,
that fixed the market. Yeah. That fixes the
yeah.
market problem in that sense. What about traction? What would a traction have looked like for me, you think?
Just happy users. Like, you could have, I think you guys were doing this. I don't know. Were you doing this? Did you have guys using the product and saying, I'm happy with this thing? How
Not
early
enough.
did that happen?
I think that we could have literally just gone, there is a guy in our target market as my next door neighbor. And I remember being like, why have I not walked over there and said, hey, can I redo your wardrobe for you? And I was like, I think I would have got, yes. And honestly, it was way more fun to sit at my computer and just build it than to actually go over there and say, can I do it for you even physically? And it was like, I think 4 or 5 years later that we actually, when we were building out the women's product, because I didn't feel like I could be the audience, everybody on the team had to go to someone's house and physically create a new wardrobe for a woman in our target market, and including engineers. Everybody had to go on assignment and do it, build it, and then come back together. And there were so many more insights. It was super interesting. But that took us 4 years to get there.
Yeah. And again, like, if you go to the best investors, like, they don't mess around. They're just like really good at finding your weakness, and I just think that's really important to get to figure out what your weakness is as early as you can during the evolution of your startup idea, so you can fix it before you fall in love with something. Like, if you have the conversation with the best people early, does that make sense to you? Like, you can blend some of their ideas into your idea and it gets better instantly and early. The guys
I felt that every time. I felt that every time I talked to the VC. I started to get the sense of like, oh my gosh, these people are like typically consulting background, Harvard Business School, quarterback in the football team and plays concert violin, like just like ridiculously accomplished people with tons of context. And then they're going to give you 15 minutes of pure advice. It's like, that's gold, it's super expensive. If you wanted to pay for that advice, it'd be super expensive to get it.
Well, when we did what we did, us building the Collateral MVP, that was like 2013 or something, right? Or was that the year? So I mean, a long time has passed. I learned a lot, you learned a lot. And all these investors have learned a lot too, so I just feel like there's a lot more knowledge in the world around this stuff now than there was 7 years ago, for sure. And again, there's just a lot more seed stage investors or early investors that exist that have some clues and can be useful. So I just say, like, if you're saying you're at the angel stage, or like I was just describing, there's a company I know that has been working for a year on a product, maybe a year and a half, very, very slow, very deliberately, with no money. And now they're saying that we're going to go raise an angel round in the fall, looking for intros. And I'm just like, man, like, you have enough now to go for seed, at least, maybe Series A, like, you've built this product, you spent all this energy on it, and you shouldn't be aiming so low. they interpreted what I said as, oh, okay, you think I have enough people on my list of people to talk to? I'm like, no, you're totally missing the point. No, you have enough to go, like you should have at this point had enough time to get to the point where you can raise a proper seed round. And if you're not there yet, you're kind of failing, like, I don't know, that's pretty tough talk, but I just think that if you're stuck in the angel stage for years or even like many, many months, something's wrong, like you're afraid, most likely. It's probably your fear, or your stuff's not very good, like it's tough to
Yeah.
hear that, but
Yeah. What
yeah.
advice would you give, or how did you get into the right conversations with the right people? Because I feel like some people feel like, I'm in Cincinnati, I've talked with the group of people here, or maybe they even did a trip to Indy or to Chicago, but it's like, how do I branch into geography that I don't even live there, and
Yeah,
relationships like that? How do I do that?
ask Blake or me for intros. Like you would give an intro to a West Coast person to virtually anyone that asks you. And again, I always check their idea to make sure that I'm not sending someone that I'm going to be embarrassed about. But yeah, we'll check your idea briefly and get you the opportunity to have that conversation, pay it forward. I mean, I've had 100 of those intros made for me, and this happens in the Valley. San Francisco is great because everybody who's anyone there was helped by 100 people to get to where they are, if not 1,000, and they all want to pay things forward. As long as you're not a bozo, as long as you're not a
Yeah.
total waste of time, they'll help you out.
Yeah, what's interesting is that that's such a more interesting meeting too, I think,
Mm.
which is like if I'm a newbie calling Rye and be like, hey, I want to raise, here's a list of people I'm looking for. Do you know any of these people? They're like, well, first tell me about your idea. I feel like that's like a productive conversation. It's so much better of a conversation than, hey, can I buy you coffee and pick your brain?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I'll tell you this too. Like if you go, I think if you go to the Valley you're in Cincy and you're looking, I'm raising a $2 million round at a 6 pre, right? That's not crazy. That's not crazy. That's normal. That's actually average out there, if not below average. And they'll only respect you if you say that, like if you're like, oh yeah, I'm raising an angel round back in Cincy, they're like, loser, like you're just aiming low. You're not world class. You're not going to build something that I ever want to invest in, at least. You're just going too slow. You're aiming too low, and it's hard to hear that, but that's just the reality of it. And I actually think that the people in the Midwest, the best investors in the Midwest, are looking for those kind of deals, not they're looking for the same stuff. And it's very rare here because there's very rare that people have that ambition and confidence to quote do it right. It feels like an impossible thing to accomplish, but I just think that it's the closer you can get to that world than how you're thinking now, the better.
Yeah, I like the idea of it's like, I need to get a mortgage, right? So like last time that we had to get a mortgage, that was a project. That wasn't a phase of our family.
No.
It was a project, right? It's like, I need
Yeah.
to go out and get a mortgage. So what do? We listed out a couple banks. We talked with them. We shopped rates, and then we chose, and then we moved on, And we could have found out, oh, well, you need to do X, Y, and Z to get a mortgage. Then we've been like, okay, cool. Let's go do X, Y, and Z. Then we'll come back and get a mortgage. And I feel like that's a better framework for raising venture than this, like, it's a 2-year period, right? We're not in the mortgage gathering period for 2 years. That would be really strange,
Yeah, it would be. It would just say that you're not really confident about your ability to get a mortgage, right? Like,
yes, right, exactly, yeah.
Or you're afraid of getting. There's something weird that's blocking you. And so, like, again, a challenge. You don't know anybody out there. Solution: start getting to meet people. Like, they will take your intros. Like, I went out to the Valley before, and I just did 25 meetings over a week, and that's expensive. And I know it's hard to do that now in the age of Zoom and coronavirus. It's a little bit easier to get to get the meetings, but it was just purely a network building exercise at the first stage for me. And so I think you have to do that without any preconditions. Like, you just want to start seeding your relationships, start meeting people. If you want to be in the if you want to be a venture founder, a founder of a venture-backed company, you better start trying to get to know the investors. And again, I hear people say, like, oh yeah, they're investors. I don't like them, like blah blah blah. Like, like anything in life, if you have a negative attitude towards something, you're gonna not be very good at it. If you hate going to the gym, it's not going to be a good experience. So again, if you're going to raise VC, like, like get in the game, get to know people, like don't be shy. There's great people in Cincinnati that are very connected. I always think of like Tim Schigel, like people overlook him, man.
Dude, that guy's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah,
He's
and
super connected.
he knows everyone you need to get things seated, and he's pretty good at shooting holes in like half baked ideas. And if you can't get your idea past him, there's probably something wrong with it. You know, so go have a chat with him. I'm sure he'd be happy to talk to you now that his job now is as a VC. You know, he was helpful even when he was running the fund at Centrifuge, but now that he's running Refinery, it's that much better. So
yeah, is there anyone else that you feel like in the Cincinnati area in particular? So you obviously, how should people if people wanted to reach out to you? Is it Twitter? Is that the best way, or how should they reach out to you?
Yeah, you email me rye@rywalker.com. That's fine.
Cool. Okay. Who else are people in Cincinnati you feel like that can make those connections? You, me, I feel like we both have good networks in that, and partially because we co-built our networks together.
Yeah. The
Tim
Differential
Schigel.
Mafia. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think Brunk obviously and Metzner are all great. You know, Charlie Key is great.
Yeah, he's awesome.
You know, I just basically feel like who's raised money from a VC. That's really that's who's done it before. And you know, Schigel did that. You know, he raised money, built a big company. He's had all kinds of great things happen. Great experience building things that happened with Share This. So I would just spend all my energy talking to people who have built venture scale businesses before or raised.
It seems
money.
like that seems like a pretty fundamental principle of like get advice from people who have been to the place that you want to go. Yeah. And if they haven't been to that place, then you have to kind of weigh that advice a little bit. So
yeah, it could be directly wrong. Again, there's certain advice that makes a perfect sense for a small business that doesn't make sense for a venture scale company, and vice versa. Like there's some advice that they're polar opposites of each other. And if you do this thing over there, but you know, I mean, transgression of rules, it can be the way you get to success too. Like I remember when we were in the beginning of Astronomer, we talked to VCs about services because we had these companies that wanted us to help them with services, and like, services is there's a lot of gravity there. Like once you start doing that, there's no coming back. But we did it, and we were able to make it through. It wasn't an easy path, but you know, that stage where we did services for companies around data pipelines helped us actually learn what the hell we were working on, and feel customer pain. So I definitely think that you know, at the end of the day, advice from investors, and again, the best advice investors will say, like, take this with a grain of salt. They don't want you to take their advice perfectly, but man, it's good to hear it. I think at least you know what you're doing wrong if you're doing something wrong, you know, or going against the grain.
Especially in aggregate, right? It was like one-off investor feedback is worth so much, but once you begin to get some sort of consensus, you start to realize either, maybe this is true. So
How many times did you hear why guys? Why not women? Like, probably every single pitch you did, but you didn't hear it. You didn't listen to it, right? You were just like, yes. But that's there's competition there, you know, like this is new and fresh and like, you know, but yeah, like, is there a market? Like, little bit less of a market, right? So anyway, I think listening to So
all right. What let's land the plane. Any final advice or tips or thoughts if you're talking to literally we have like the audience of this is under 1,000 but often like actual founders. Like I have a bunch of founders who are texting me after, like even the Brad Zapp one that I did last time, they'll text and be like, man, that was super helpful. So it's like a small audience of really relevant topics. So any other advice that you'd give to those folks?
I would just really reiterate back to confidence. You know, I mentioned like being confident, acting. There's a lot of acting. Even at the stage we are raising Series A from West Coast big investors, and it should be all facts. There's still a lot of stagemanship happening on both sides of the table. So, like, that's an important thing to really understand, that it's a dance. Like it's kind of a play. Pitching a VC is not exactly, you know, like throwing all your cards on the table. It's more like poker.
It's theater. It's theater.
Yes, it's theater. Yes, and
Yes.
many people aren't comfortable with that. But if you can realize this is theater and it's a game, and like it's poker with your cards up, not poker with your cards down. That's a pretty important thing to figure out, and almost impossible, I think, to figure out until you've done it enough times that you realize that's the way it is. But I don't know. I actually think that's probably one of the most important things with fundraising is realizing that like we talk, you hear about FOMO all the time, like, oh yeah, I got to create FOMO, and people think they understand what that means, but you actually want real FOMO. You want real competition. You don't want fake competition. You want to actually have a flush in your hand, right? And not just pretending. You don't want to be bluffing. So I think that's the hard part. Is people think that when we say it's theater, they think, oh, that means I got to bluff. No, you actually have good cards.
Yes.
So anyway, another analogy, but yeah, I'm happy to keep chatting, and if anyone wants a pep talk or to get the shit beat out of them a little bit, if they feel like they need that, send them my way.
Cool. Thanks for having this conversation. I think it's gonna be helpful to some folks. And who knows, maybe we can get a good LinkedIn or Facebook debate going or something like that. So
Yeah.
cool.
Awesome.
All right.